that I just come in there and look for knockoffs, and that's not the case. You know, I'm actually a sharp, smart fighter.
So, well, I'm here. Who wanted to fight with me?
I really don't care who's in front of me. I don't feel like no fighter beat me.
My goal is to demolish everybody, to be honest. Everybody that's in my way. The pinnacle to any weight division is to have all the belts, all of the titles.
Welcome to Bodywork. Welcome back. It's Michael Rogers. Welcome to Bodywork Boxing. It feels so good to be back. How y'all doing out there on this fine Sunday evening? Shout out to everybody who putting their war paint on their face for tomorrow. Whether you're going to work, running your business, you're getting up and you got something to do. I know you're getting yourself together, at least mentally. That's what I be doing. But I figured it'd be a good time to talk some good old boxing and put some things out, man, clarify some things, man, and just give the pulse. Shout out to Cookie Monster, Bodywork. Salute Cookie Monster. Mic check, 1 2 1 2. You already know, sounding crystal clear. That's what I like to hear. But I'm gonna slow it down. I'm not gonna be in no rush, man. Let everybody, zone out to the tunes and get in and get settled. So we can talk some of that good old boxing talk, man. We had a good night of boxing last night. I was entertained. At one point in time, I was like, all right, I got one more fight left to watch, and overall, I was entertained. I could see why at times, you would have wanted, especially at the end, you would have wanted more action. You really be wanting that home run. You want somebody to smack it out the park on the main event. That's what you really want. Doesn't always happen, man, but when two guys are evenly matched and it ain't too much give and one's taking risk and then, knowing that they up, I'm thinking, man, in a fight like the Barbosa and Sims fight, man, somebody got to really sell out and smack somebody. Now, I looked at it like it was pretty much decisive. But as far as action-packed and going to the next, and you got to think, Barbosa hadn't lost. I mean, he only lost once. So he was coming back off of that, so I looked at it, I'm like, man, at that caliber, at that level, but you could say that Kitty Sims is just good enough, is what are we doing? How are we looking at Kenny Sims? At one point in time, he was right on the cusp of the row. I put him up. He was in a couple episodes featuring the row, the most littest division in boxing right now. Even though some of these guys is getting ready to start moving on up to 47, it's getting ready to get real interesting. That's why when I had put up when I put this up, it's starting to look more and more like this now. because it was really highlighting the people at 40, but you can kind of see that them lines and getting blurred. And shoot, I seen Speedy Rashidi. He's taking full ownership of the 154 division. He's saying that's where he going. That's how he campaigning. That's where he, that's where he gonna be doing this thing at. Eshawn saying he fighting the champion. I mean, I don't know. Can we assume it's going to be Crocker? I mean, if he say he's going to fight a champion at 47, and he's fighting sooner than and it's already a done data after the Linguini method, like, what's going on? What is going on in the sport, you guys? But this is episode 7 of The Pulse of Boxing. And we always say, listen to what everybody else say, man. Enjoy your favorite people, the people who get your juices flowing and get you going and keep you motivated and maintaining throughout your days. Listen to all of that and then come over and hear what we got to say. We're the alternative to what everybody else got to say, even though sometimes talking points will align. We finally getting closure on this Vergil and this boot situation. And I think people are now coming to terms with what we knew like 4 months ago. What we were bold enough to speak about 4 months ago going in. And I'm going to get down to some things that are really going to show you like why we put stakes in the ground and why we don't get our blood pressure high about certain things. We had done all the mental gymnastics and looked at all of the options and figured that going in the probability, which you'll never get credit for. But if you have a digital fingerprint, like we do, stating this whole thing about, don't let them get you all excited, get you all worked up, and they can't hose you down. We were saying, don't do that, man. Fruits and veggies, not that Reggie, that fact-based, because we went over all the scenarios and there's some stuff in there, right? And I often hear, and I've heard, like, the broader picture is I've heard more people dive into the Vergil Ortiz in them side and why the fight fell through. It's not too many people that have been digging and they've been doing like outright, factual, pieces of anything that'll really tell you about Boots. Like, we'll see that he moved on. I seen a little stuff, but he's talking about like what he did to Romain Villa and stuff like that. I mean, I don't know, man, but we get in the day, and this is what I be meaning. Like, people need to pick up the other side. Think about what I'm saying. We keep hearing all these people, like the major places, they're picking up on the Vergil side. What does that tell y'all? Yeah, they asking the question, if they are, if they happen to run into him or see him, or, you'll probably see more videos here, this upcoming week, because it's like now in the boxing world, they need a little bit of time to realize that the fight was done. Like, it's move on. Like, they're just now coming around to accept it. And I heard Boots himself saying, yeah, they moving on. And I'm like, well, what was the plan B, C, D, and E? Like, what was it? Like, we was already saying, man, like, go in there with something else, man. Go in there with more than one game plan. But I think people are just now moving on and looking forward. It's almost like the reset button has been set. And we've been keeping a good timeline of events and things that happen. And, and we've been seeing, like, ultimately whose career is moving how and what pivots were made. And it just looked like, how they say always I forgot that little wedding saying they say, but you never at the altar getting married, man. Name always in the hat, name ring bells, but you're never the one at the altar getting married when it comes to a big fight. Yikes! But we're here now, and for us, we're asking the question, what now? How are you going to proceed moving forward? And hindsight is 2020, because I'm seeing and hearing a lot of people coming out. Man, I guess you could say coming around, to some things that had been put out here a while ago. And now they're standing on it now. Like, I'm like, dang, man. Can you be too early or people too late? I don't know. I'll be asking myself, are you impatient? Are you just, I'm like, I think I kind of got over that a little bit. I think I'm kind of over that, everything take time and all that, but I just be saying, man, Mike, relax, long as we getting all the fights and all that. So this is really not going to be anything that's going to detract from Boots. This is going to be more like, okay, look, this is what we've been through, guys. This is what we've been through. This is how we felt all along. And what are we going to do moving forward? Like, we're solution oriented. What are we looking at moving forward? Now, remember, the Brian Norman situation happened. That didn't happen. It's okay for everybody to want to get out here and argue like till they turn blue in the face about why it didn't happen. The point of the matter is it didn't happen. Devin got that. He was crying for the Baccarat fight. I was saying, man, listen, that's Rocky all over, man. You will get all like he's looking like the boogeyman. Like, kept saying, hey man, he's been inactive. It's been 15 months, he can't get a fight. You had the IBF. You called him out, he called you out. What's going on? You could have used your leverage with the IBF. And people say, oh, that's not automatic. It's not automatic, but I love that when people blurt out and say it's not. Okay, no, Sherlock, it's not automatic. No, you have to go to them and you have to put in paperwork or talk to them and make your, intentions be known, and they'll work with you. That didn't happen. Guess what happened? Josh Kelly had a signed contract with Boots' name on it going into the fight. And nobody thought he was going to do that. Controversial, like we've been saying, it's been controversial. But at the end of the day, he wound up walking out of there with the nod. Then they got that Stadium of Light. I think that joint hold like 48,000, 65, 48 or 65. It's in the video. But 50, you might well say 50. They know they had that. I guess, and they felt like they were sure. Of course, they're gonna say they were sure all the way through, but you can't go in there with a man like that, and you gotta believe, but you gotta be realistically too. Like, what could happen? Like, you gotta know, but you gotta believe in yourself. And they ultimately pulled it off. After that, when they were referring to Boots, excellent fighter, brings nothing to the table. That's like the automatic. That's almost like the oil with the vinegar. It's like the beans and then the rice. It's like that go together. Excellent fighter, brings nothing to the table. It's like, man, I hate to reiterate the whole losing the leverage, but no, I mean, I'm not gonna steal my own thunder. But it's wonderful how hindsight is 2020 now. It's like, guys, wake up, you guys. Like, especially if you have a voice. If you got soldiers that out here listening, like, wake up. Let's in real time. Let's talk about it. What about if everybody would have been telling the truth about how it was a bad move to jump up without your leverage? What if we would have held Eddie and Boots and all whoever was responsible? Like, what if we'd have held their feet to the fire and say, hey, listen, guy, you moved up with a belt. Now, mind you, think about how hard it was for you to get one. They stripped Bud to give you yours. You go ahead and get this Stanyanis joint, they toss in the ring, and then you just drop them all and arbitrarily move up as a gym rat. And yeah, it might have been a struggle. It might have been a struggle to make the weight and all that, but come on, bro. If you'd have got one more, man, But it's not the point. That's your decision, and that's you gotta do what's best for your career. And you're making bread. That's not even the point. But people try to say, "Oh man," like they'll jump out there and get in the way of it, and not really think about the bigger picture. Like, don't argue about that. Argue about or talk about all the things that could lead us to get in the fight. That's how you can circumvent a lot of the arguing and the bickering and all that back and forth with somebody, where it's like, man, you ask yourself, man, is this gonna get me close? This logic? If somebody were to hear this and they had some kind of rationale, would it help us get closer to the fight, or would it muddy the waters and distract us? Would it get us off? Would it redirect our energy? And that's all we've been doing for the last 4 months. Pointing fingers and saying, ha, it's because of Vergil. Meanwhile, at the expense of Boots not getting the coverage. And lastly, we got Tank. Hindsight is definitely 2020 when it comes. Like, all of the facts have not been revealed. Everything is not actually out there. But what we do know is that ain't nobody going to jail, ain't nobody getting locked, ain't nobody, like, you know what I'm saying? That's why I just sit back and I wait so I can look at it all. You know, I don't gotta come out here and be first, man. I try to do things that support the young man, you know, and I try to remember that, hey, life be lifing, and there's more to the story. And in my opinion, you earned the benefit of the doubt. Everybody else get the benefit of the doubt. Oh, I'll go do this, I'll go. And they'll clearly show you that they can go do something else. Or they clearly show you that everything that they were talking about before doesn't really matter now. That's not the sweet science. Are there breakthroughs? Yes. Is there evolution? Yes. But constants are constants. And I'm seeing now that a lot of people are acceptable. A lot of people are like church mice out here when it comes to like their favorite fighters and how they're moving and what they're doing and how they can justify. I'm talking about major channels, people in the business. They're just so accepting of a lot of things that's going on in boxing. And I'm like, dang, just the other day, it wasn't too long, about a week ago, like, it seemed like a long time in boxing, but like, man, when we starting to really see that when it comes to certain boxers, there are double standards. Like, listen, the fact that people would even believe the word that came out of Devin Haney's mouth when he said that Tank was an underachiever, the fact that people will believe it and out there and would actually argue that, I mean, what more can you say? But in accepting things like that, right, then that means that back when, however, you know, one of these guys that you didn't like, however they moved and whatever they did to get to that spot where they at, and they got a track record of being accurate, being deadly, putting butts in seats, making money, of being a money generator. And it's so wild that the man hasn't come back yet. Yet in every video, I'm talking about, it could be two randoms. It was like, was it Ray Ford or Kenny Simmons, or one of them? It was just somebody just totally random, just doing something on Tank right now. Like, I'm like, what the hell? Like, but in the same breath will tell you that, oh, he ain't this, he ain't that. I put out that short because I'm seeing that whole thing is getting real popular about how the whole double standard between Shakur won the fight, Pitbull, and now that Tank is going to rematch him, all of the uproar and backlash. Just like, man, hindsight is 2020, y'all. It's a different standard, so maintain your blood pressure. I think it's supposed to be somewhere around 120/80 with some kind of variance, but on a regular basis, it's not only the pulse because we know what's going on. It's the pulse because we know what's going on. We ain't gonna steer you the wrong way, and we want you to keep going on, just like the sport. So I wanted to put that on y'all mind. What's good with you, AC?
What's good with you, man? Good stuff to put on people's mind, man. Yeah, just finishing up the last of the last errands and stuff like that. That sometimes you got to put in that work with the missus. Running errands might be our little way to have some alone time and be productive together. But other than that, man, I wanted to say this concerning the tank situation. Once I heard about it, it it just appeared to me to be something that had some sort of scheme behind it. It just didn't play out correct. And then as time kept on going by, there are general questions you would ask based on the entire situation, which I'm not going to go into the details. I'm just going to speak on it, but speak in a blanket manner, that there would just be certain tangibles that you would ask. Are they being met? And when those things weren't met, then for me, it was just like, all right, pause. Just see how this shit plays out, because it's a little weird, and the verbiage behind it, and then everyone getting on to try to defame him. It was like a conscious effort off an accusation, nothing that was proven, to completely dismantle, discredit, cries for him to be kicked out of boxing. There's no more room in boxing for people like this, and X, Y, and Z. I mean, everything was so definitive and so harsh. Now that we're hearing a fight is coming up, and then you're seeing this undertow in the way some of these channels are talking, like, yeah, we need Tank to come back. But you were the same people who were saying that this type of behavior is not tolerable. There needs to be something done about him. Maybe we should be thinking about pulling his license and all of this other stuff. But the mere fact that none of the other guys are exciting like that, don't get you up for the fight like that. Now everybody's like, yeah, well, I think there is a real avenue for him. And within all of that, it's like, okay, there was also the undertow that a certain guy who's under the banner of MVP was behind all of this. And then you look at his movements and find out who he's palling around with these days. It might make a little bit of sense to you, because you look at how people move before, you look at how they move after. And if there's going to be outrage, there should be outrage on that side. So with just that being said, it's like, look, man, just shut the fuck up. Leave a man name out your mouth. If it's something like that, that's not your place or your business to be criticizing anybody over. Just shut your bitch ass the fuck up. That's how I tend to look at it, and I hope when this man steps in the ring, a lot of you bitch ass channels out there will have the fucking balls and the fortitude to say, yeah, I got a son out there, and I don't want this video or the trail of videos that I made persuade my son's opinion to be like, my pops don't have a stand-up character. You said something wrong about somebody and you never apologized to them, or just came out your face and said, I reported on some things, I was wrong. I just have to say to that young man, I was wrong and I apologize to you. That just shows you the character of these motherfuckers. But y'all willing to give them your fucking money. And I'm not saying anybody in the 300. I'm talking about the ghost listeners. All the ghosts around here. So with that being said, that's pretty much that. And again, this Boots and Vergil situation, it's like, fuck are you guys doing? Why did you guys play these games? Whether or not you're still trying to sell us on whether the fight's, yeah, we know the fight's gonna happen, but we know also that fight wasn't gonna happen now, like all you fans was calling for. Now we got the spectacles and all of this other stuff, and people trying to tie a situation to the court case, and it's like, no, you're reaching, because Oscar told you exactly why they went to court. So stop. Pay attention. And that's all I got.
Salute Eric Jones. Oh yeah, man. You cooking, man. You had to get something up off your chest. You know what I'm saying? You said it with your chest. Like a real chef.
Yeah, definitely, man. Because it was annoying listening to it, because I was like, how are you guys speaking like this? And y'all don't know. But yet this man still got an open case on the same fucking thing. And his shit happened a year before Tank. But y'all don't want to speak on that, but y'all definitely gonna speak on this, man. Man, save me. Save me. I'm not even gonna be a part of this. And, you know, there was a fallout between me and the dude that I haven't gone back to his channel. Because I'm just like, the way you talked and the way your audience was talking and people that was on that panel, at the end of the day, it wasn't the hate for the situation, but the hate of the individual. And I don't know how you can muster up the courage to hate someone in a manner that hasn't directly done anything to you. It's not a politician or passing laws that affect you, or you're seeing, you know, some egregious whatever. Dude is just living his life. And y'all mad at his life. What the fuck wrong with you dudes? Like, wow, okay. I can't be that type of man. I don't think I ever was that type of man. So at the end of the day, do y'all. I'm good. Yeah. Yeah, I remember that. You know what I'm saying? But we're not going to talk about the Kovalev situation. We're not going to talk about, you know, any of those European fighters who really did shit. And we're not going to talk about the fact of Shakur punching a white lady in the face and all of this other stuff. But we're not going to talk about that. We're going to leave that type of stuff alone.
Yeah, we're gonna keep it moving, man. But yeah, man, you saying what need to be said, man. Hey, you gotta get it off your chest. You gotta get it off your chest, man. But I got some housekeeping.
All right.
And let's see. Oscar Collazo is making an argument as the face of Puerto Rican boxing. He's making a very strong argument. He has the look. I mean, he's at mini flyweight, but he put the fly in mini flyweight. I ain't gonna lie, man. He made his guy retire on the stool, man.
Ain't that back to back?
Hmm?
Ain't that back to back retired on the stool, people?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, Jesus Hero, man, and he 14-0 with 11 KOs. And this is the thing about the little guys. Some people don't get all excited because they hit each other like 100,000 times, right? And they don't be really getting the knockouts. Like, this guy's actually doing it because he's at a 78%. You know, so he is making a strong case. You know, I think he, especially if he was like a little bit bigger, of course, but like, we gotta respect the paperclip weights and things like that. Why? Because there is, like, out here in the world, it's not the average. It's not like what we commonly see, but we do see, like, it's somebody in the bunch gonna be a shorter guy, a smaller guy, and they've had problems. Matter of fact, they get tried more than the big guys. Because, you know what I'm saying, who you gonna try? You gonna try a little guy, you gonna try the big guy. And those little guys be knowing how to fight through experience, through whatever, you know, and then it's kind of awkward sometimes dealing with them little guys. But he is one of the guys to where he's must-see TV whenever he's fighting. I mean, he got the image. He got the how they razor sharp the beard and then they cut the mustache all down. He got the whole image, man. You know, he got the physique. He got the crowd. He got like people are really taking notice to him. He's really making some noise and being 105 pounds. You gotta respect that. He's putting on for his people, man, and they love him. So, you know, that's the first one. The second one, Kakasi. Anthony Kakasi might be the one for shock. And why you say that, Mike? If you listen, I'm gonna tell you, right? Because back when Shakur wanted to fight Joe Cordina, when we heard that was the first fight, when he had that epic free agency, like world fast Carl Lewis style, ran over there to Matchroom and signed with Eddie, the first thing we get is a Joe Cordina. Well, off the break, keeping the same energy, I said, hold on, man, that man just got stopped, bro. So you fighting a guy for stop it? I don't. Okay, we've seen where people came off of losses, but a stoppage loss, that didn't really make, because y'all had now listen, this is a nugget for y'all, because they had old, it wasn't beef, but they had been back and forth. It was something there already before. They had something going on, mind you. And that was at 130. This is at 130, right? That was because Jazza Dickens is the WBA. He was the WBA champ at 126, 130. I'm sorry, yeah, 130. Where Shakur was. So Shakur had already been up to 35, like for you know what I'm saying, for a minute. So when he went over there, we was like, hold on, man, you taking a guy not only off of a loss, but a stoppage loss. And he's moving up. Nobody wanted to say anything about that. So let's fast forward. Kakasi, he did that with Joe Cordina, and I like Joe Cordina. He came back, he got one of them Flores, was it Gabe Flores, I think, and he did what he needed to do to him. Looked good. A lot of people speculating maybe him and Abdullah might get it on. I'm not sure. I'm trying to follow along and see what I'm getting. But Kakasi put on another clinic, and he wound up handily beating Jazza Dickens. And I liked him. I was excited. But back then I was asking, why would Shakur want to fight Cordina but not Kakasi, the guy who stopped him? But it was all on the premise that they had some things going on back and forth. They had already been having some light banter amongst each other. So that was why. That's kind of odd when you bring up Shock right now in the position. But I'm not going to get too far off into that aspect of it. However, a lot of people try to deflect and blame and point fingers at O'Shaquie Foster because he had that interim strap. He got it on a whim, on a humbug. But once he realized Shakur wasn't going to fight him at 35, he went back down in hopes to get the winner of Navarrete and Nunez. Even though Suarez got some say in that. Shakur had been tossing Ray Ford out there. We've been looking to see what's going to happen with the Ray Ford. Ray Ford is still, saying he's training. He's putting up training videos, saying hashtag still waiting. So maybe they know, maybe they don't. I'm not going to fall into it. You know what I'm saying? Especially since that's an extended member of the Brat Pack. He was in my boxes to watch as the Cobra. But I'll leave it at that. Kakasi did what he did to Jazza Dickens, and I think right now, coming with that momentum and the names that he's actually upset before, like the names and how Kakasi got it and that style, I'm looking forward to that fight. I wouldn't say nothing at all. Like if when you start hearing that BS about if that is to happen, right, and O'Shaquie goes that direction, one, that's a unification. So that keep your blood pressure down and say, hey, listen, if it's not Ray Ford, right, and it winds up being that he's gonna go do something like that, a unification, like you can stop that shit at the door. Unification is trump all that bullshit. You know what I'm saying? He said he wanted the father, not the son, but he would. So I don't know. I'm not making no excuses. We gotta wait and see. But as he engaged with Roach is fighting Williams Zepeda. So I'm eliminated Shakur. I eliminated Zepeda. It's no speculation. Even though O'Shack said he would fight Tank coming back, I was like, yeah, really? Okay. But we know Tank ain't. We know what the speculation around Tank is, that he's gonna get Pitbull. So through process of elimination, and if Nunez and Suarez gonna have to get it on, it ain't no Nunez, and it ain't no. I mean, I'm sorry, Navarrete and Nunez and Suarez gonna have to get it on, and it ain't gonna be no Oshaki. Just to stay active and keep your momentum, young brother. Yeah, I would be looking for a unification with Kakasi. Yep, I would. That's the second one. The last one. Resendiz and Mar Charlo explored. Like, that fight was being explored, y'all, because the Jaime Munguia and Resendiz fight had hit a wall, and we thought we was gonna get that, because I was like, okay, cool, I'll take that. You know what I'm saying? Because, you know, I'm not that high on Jaime Munguia. So if it's somebody that I actually like, because remember, just like Oshaki Foster gave us a picture perfect BTA belt to against Stephen Fulton. Yeah, Resendiz gave us that with Caleb Plant. A systematic, thorough beatdown. No drops, just a thorough beatdown, breakdown, body work, everything. So them two guys are kind of high. They're peaking on my charts, and I'm like, okay, cool. I always like Maul. Remember, he's undisputed. I mean, not undisputed, he's undefeated. And even though he had all those problems, I just want him to be in there if his mind is right. Will he ever be the same as he was before? I'm not sure. But the fact that the man is coming back, and if somebody sanctioned the fight, they put him in the ring and all that, you know what I'm saying? Then okay, cool. I seen the man get in there after about a month and a half with a club foot. You know what I'm saying? On some new, I just seen it. So if Marl is good enough to get back in there, I welcome it. And Resendiz is excellent fighter, man. I think that's part of that monster stable that Robert Garcia got, man. I believe he got some. Robert Garcia got some unalivers out there, man. He got a squad. But salute to J-Man. Salute to J-Man. Salute to Devo. Yeah, that fight, and I wanted to see that. I wanted to see that fight. You know what I'm saying? But I had to move on, just like we always move on. I wanted to see that fight. I wanted to see that fight with Kakasi. That would have told me a lot, because with that dude Matisse, I was live at that fight, that Ray Ford versus Matisse. That was on the Boots Stan Giannis undercard, and Zaquin Moses was on there. Gil Soft was on there. That's when Boots stopped in Montes. I was there, and that guy, he just chose to just do the same thing round after round with that guy Matisse. So after that and after the Nick Ball stuff, I haven't been as high, because I'm like, man, you got to separate yourself talking all that stuff. And if people are actively out here, there are people still actively out here trying to maintain that Oshaki is ducking Ray Ford. So for me in the Brat Pack affiliation, I hadn't really been on it. I'll stay abreast of it. I'll do my research so I'm knowledgeable about what's going on with them. But in my book, Kakasi is that guy. Resendiz, if Resendiz and Mar Charlo get it on, sign me up. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna watch. It'll be a very telling fight for me, because Jamal Charlo still has one of the best jabs in boxing. Let's not forget, we just gotta see him in action. But that's the housekeeping, AC. What you got on any of that?
Man, as far as Collazo, for me, like I said, I would vote for him right now as the Puerto Rican face of boxing. The thing that I was gonna say within his look, right? That the way he cuts his beard, that's a New York Dominican thing. All the Dominican barbershops in Bushwick, that's how them dudes come in. And they've been on that for like a minute. You feel what I'm saying? So he rocks that, so that tells you, for me, that he makes his rounds, or he's somebody, he knows somebody, or he's been here to New York and stuff like that, or someone from Brooklyn or maybe Harlem or whatever. But that's a New York thing. The way he was rocking that beard. At least for me, I haven't seen it any place else. Maybe Malazar or somebody else will come up here and expand on that or tell me I'm absolutely wrong. But within that, he has everything that, for me, that sells Puerto Rican boxing. Like when they showed in the lead up to the fight, he was listening to his Spanish music and stuff like that and getting it in with the dances and everything, and he came out in a little like straw hat that you see all day every day, especially when you go to Harlem, Spanish Harlem, for Puerto Rican Day, during the Puerto Rican Day parade and that whole week of like Puerto Rican pride. But for me, yeah, Collazo, like I was saying to you before, he gives me those heavy Nair Albright things. You're long, you're lanky, you're awkward, but there might be some sneaky power or something sneaky within you, because when you look at the fight with him and Jazza, it was pretty much only the 5th round. But then when you look at the end of the fight and you look at Jazza Dickinson's face, you think that, bruh, where the fuck did all of that come from? So I was just like, yeah, there's something sneaky about you. But his technique, when you just look at it, your knee-jerk reaction might be, like it was with me, was, yeah, Shaq is gonna beat the shit out of him. But we've seen awkward fighters take solid, highly skilled technical fighters completely out their game. The Spinks brothers were excellent at doing that shit. You know what I'm saying? Probably go down in history as the most awkward fighters, in boxing's history. You could talk about Emmanuel Augustus, but that was a particular way he chose the fight. But when you've seen him box, his technique was sound. You talk, like, for me, another fighter, I would probably say Iron Barkley.
Mm-hmm.
Awkward fighter. There are just things about him. It's like, how the fuck do you train for this guy? So within the realms of all of those type of fighters, I gotta put, like, based on his last performance, the near Albrights, and just looking at, Kakasi, like, yeah, you'll go in that category for me. I want to see a little bit more from you, but from what I've seen right there, I wasn't like really onto him like that. I wasn't following him like that, but for me, it's like, let me see another one of those type performances from you, bro. You might have me, you might go in my banana peel category. Like, if motherfuckers ain't really watching what they doing and looking at the floor from time to time, this dude right here is a banana peel. You fuck around and slip up on him and he got you. You find yourself on your ass, on your back, looking up at the ceiling like, duh, how did this happen? So he's one of those fighters that I'm looking at to see if I could put him in that box. He'll go in that box. There's nothing wrong with that for me, because I look at, fighters like Sam Nooks. I'm brain farting right now. I prior to this, I probably could have just ran off like 3 guys, but within that category, dudes like Sam Nooks, what's the Dalton Smith, dudes like that like tell you guys that, hey, don't fucking sleep on these dudes, because if you sleep on them, they're gonna fuck you up. And I would want to put Andy Hirioka in that category, but I think Andy is he's just good. He's just solid. He's not a banana peel. You better be, if you call out Andy Hirioka's name, you know what the fuck you working with, and you saying, yeah, I want to be a badass and beating Andy Hirioka. You feel what I'm saying? So that's I can't put him in that category. He just a badass to me, you know, because yeah, I'm saying it and I'm letting you know there is biases on it, because in my looking at Jin and Japanese boxing, Andy Hirioka was a guy that wasn't spoken about, but was always there as like, yeah, when you just look at Japanese boxing and guys who are pretty much undefeated and coming into the game doing their thing, it was Andy Hirioka. So yeah, I won't put him in that category. I'm admitting there's some biases behind it when I talk about him and things like that. So with that being said, for me, if you really want to go out there and tell yourself you're a badass, you're going to go after these guys that are in the banana peel category, and then you're going to go after dudes like Andy Hirioka. And that tells me who you really are. And for me, Oshak, prior to this, I saw on one of the interviews, I don't remember who it was, but they was asking Oshak, like, if this Shakur thing don't work out, what you gonna do? And that's when he was saying, I don't need him. And he was talking about, I'll be looking at Jazza Dickinson, and he was like, so who do you want to win in that fight? He actually said he wanted Jazza because I could see why, because Jazza would make him look good, but still offer, you know, that level of toughness. You gotta beat Jazza Dickinson. You gotta stop him on, you know, with Kakasi. That's a whole different threat. That's a whole different mindset. I'm working and working, thinking, working, thinking, chess match, thinking. Let me see if I could establish myself and get lead hand dominance and lead foot dominance. Those are the things that you're gonna be dealing with when you're fucking with Kakasi. So I could see where you wanted to go this way. But either way, when you said either way, the winner of that fight don't matter, it was just like, bro, you running towards the smoke. We like that. So that just tells you, when you look at where the intent of one fighter is versus the intent of the other fighter. I'm chasing the guy who now feels I could fight anybody. But I'm not banking on you because I got a Jazza Dickinson or a Kakasi or a Navarrete. You feel what I'm saying? So I got smoke 360. That's what I'm trying to tell you. I just want to beat your ass. And that's gangsta as fuck to me. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, that's where I land all of that right there.
Word. Well, with the Casey, I would say, man, go back and look at what he did to Joe Cordina, and then go back and look at what he did to Lee Wood. Now, different styles, both of them, but I seen him, you know what I'm saying? So I was like, man, this dude right here, you know what I'm saying? You gotta watch out for him, man. He'll sneak up on you, man. He probably one of them people you see at the grocery store, you see out and about, and you probably size him up, like, I can take this guy. He'll fuck around and, you know what I'm saying, unhinge your jaw.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But yeah, you cooking in the comments, Devo. Pollo is nice, man. Very, very nice, man. Very, very nice. Him and Sandor Martin, man, two of the nicest in the division. Who, and depending on how you look at it, you can look at both of them and say, man, they very much both could be undefeated, depending on how you looked at the outcomes of their fights. You know what I'm saying? You could pretty much argue that because they're nice, man. So hopefully they're gonna get in the mix. We're hearing that I don't know, as news comes out, you know, things change, but you know, and people hit walls based on the money and all these economics. We were hearing that Dalton Smith probably is going to make his defense with Puello. I know that's been ordered, you know, so we're waiting to see what happens with that. I always try to go back and check like slightly after the 30 days. So even when the news come out, I look and see what happened, because even when sometimes they grant an extension and, you know, things like that. So I just wanted to address that. But that's the housekeeping, AC, man. We might as well go ahead and transition into the meat and Z potatoes. We've been outlining this whole boot situation. Yeah, the whole timeline. We went through the whole Brian Norman thing. We were saying it in real time, trying to keep people blood pressure. And it's like all these little, it's always all this rah, 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 and hooping and hollering. And then we don't get what we want. And so now this time, we're using this time like a little reset button. Like we can finally, you know, take a deep breath and exhale, because they finally said they were moving on. I'm like, golly. So now what? So this is a reset time, but I'm gonna go over these. I'm gonna go over what actually happened from our perspective, because I noticed nobody on this side does this. So I kind of wanted to do it and walk it down and speak on it, so that everybody know what's going on. The first thing I'm gonna do though, I'm gonna get this out the way. Because see, it needs to be done. So I'm gonna cite the copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing non-profit, educational, or personal use tips to balance in favor of fair. Whenever we talk about these conversations, we always want to tip Z balance in favor of fair. But Marcos Villegas, he came out, and like I said, they always address like the Vergil side. Nobody, if you notice, people come out and they do content on it, but most of the time, these people they really just be trolling or saying, nanny boo boo, ha 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 ha, just like with the Charlo thing. They just now come around saying, yeah, he was former undisputed. He was lineal. He was. Now they saying that it's like, man, come on, but all doing it, you were just saying, ha ha ha, he can't find nobody. It's like, yeah, well, 4 months later, that wasn't working out. He could have been had somebody. But they always tend to speak, you know, on behalf of that Vergil side and how they see why. I mean, you think about who I'm talking about. And this is from Fight Hub, so I always give credit. I think he's one of the better journalists when it comes down to the journalism aspect. And I've told him, I've given him his, you know, I know people, he probably think people be trying to bandwagon and do that. No, I genuinely say, if you're doing that, if you're doing excellent work and you professional about your craft, and I like it, like you organized and neat and timely, and I mean, I give credit. That's just me. So I've given him credit on this channel. I don't, you know, and I want to cite him as the source because he do some great work. So it's not me trying to bandwagon, and nothing I say is a representation of what he stand for, do whatever. Like he just one of the guys that I like when he interviews certain people. You know what I'm saying? I like the way he go at it, and I've never seen him do anything like really wild or crazy. You know what I'm saying? Even say anything. Like we might have a different opinion on some things, but he's a professional. This is his stuff. I'm not taking credit from it, but I gave fair use, and I want to play what he said. Just give me 1 second. Let me cue it up and make sure that everything's gonna be all right. Yes. He would catch you slipping. I want Boost to be undisputed at 54 plus Vergil. Okay, all right. So I'm seeing that. I'm getting ready to play this, y'all, real quick. Let's see. Let's see.
Vergil also argued in his own sworn statement that Golden Boy may have further undercut Ortiz's opportunities during De La Hoya's December Clapback Thursday appearances on IG, where De La Hoya went after Zuffa Boxing. And supposedly, those comments, that clapback video, reportedly angered Turkey, who is backing Zuffa Boxing with roughly $10 million annually, and had also paid for Conor Benn's $15 million purse to land him on this Tyson Fury return card on Netflix coming up in April. Ortiz's camp believes that those clapback videos potentially damage relationships with key power brokers in the sport. That breakdown in negotiations combined with disagreements over the purse structure ultimately led to the lawsuit. A Nevada judge has already ruled that the dispute will move to arbitration, meaning the case will now be handled outside of court. Until that process.
And this was 3 days ago, but like he said a lot just now. The clapback Thursdays ruffled some feathers, and Turkey was like, yeah, you know, he wasn't having it. He was offended. They offended power brokers and all this stuff. This is what Vergil's manager was saying and all that. I want y'all to keep listening, because it's like we be saying these things or whatever and it's not valid, but then we got to come by like a college paper and qualify with somebody else saying it afterwards.
Plays out, Ortiz's future, including a potential fight with Deron Ennis, remains uncertain. All right, so a lot to digest there. I took some notes, have some questions based on the information that I just shared with you, and if anyone from Team Ortiz, from Golden Boy, wants to go ahead and reach out to me to get to give further clarification or more information to us based on what I'm about to bring up, would greatly take that time from you guys for that. So based on the details we just talked about, Golden Boy offered $3 million with pay-per-view upside, and Ortiz's manager Rick wanted $7 million, citing the purses of Tio and Shakur, making him $8 million for the fact that they had. But that figure only works if Turkey is like financing that event. Like if it's not, and we don't know if Turkey was gonna be involved.
Man, AC, did that sound familiar? It only works. Yeah. So yeah, keep listening though. I wanted to annotate. So based on the figures that Shakur got and the figures that Tio got, his voice got high. He said it only works if Turkey, blah, blah, blah. So when we say they inflated the market, and you know what I'm saying, he basically inflated the market and, you know, changed the values of certain quote unquote products, even though they're human beings. Like, remember, we said this before.
Of it all, in this Deron Ennis versus Vergil Ortiz fight and event, I remember I saw articles saying that he wasn't interested in the fight, which was kind of surprising to me, because up to this point, he's been wanting to get just about every fight over to be like a ring event, DAZN pay-per-view, and even the Ryan versus Barrio fight, which was supposed to be a prime event with Golden Boy and DAZN, ended up just being a DAZN ring card because Turkey wanting it. And it's a good fight, man. It's like the best fight that you can make in boxing. So it surprises me from those previous articles, but we don't know if like he was going to buy the fight or finance the fight. Then yeah, that figure, of course, the 7 million makes sense. But if he wasn't going to have any involvement in that fight and wasn't going to be one of the financiers, then I'm not sure how the economics works for a fight like that, given that flat fee. Like, I don't know how you could
see, you know what I'm saying? It comes out in the wash. It comes out in the rinse. Eventually, only time. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So it comes out. It comes out like in time, man. So
come out with the flat fee like that, and just knowing a little bit about the business, how just the numbers work in terms of, all right, well, if you give Ortiz that amount, and the fight pay-per-view wise, which they stated, hey, we can start bumping up the amount if it does over 200 pay-per-view buys, and I'll get into that. But you gotta remember, the gate revenue gets split, the pay-per-view buys get split, and then also like the purses from each promoter paying their guy. It's I'm not sure if it ends up adding up to that or if it could potentially add up to that. Now, the demand of the fight, I feel, is potentially the best fight in boxing. Being on the pulse of this, like you and I, like us fans of
being on the pulse of this.
Ooh, the pulse.
Ooh, hold on.
does over 200 pay-per-view buys, and I'll get into that. But you gotta remember, the gate revenue gets split, the pay-per-view buys get split, and then also like the purses from each promoter paying their guy. It's I'm not sure if it ends up adding up to that or if it could potentially add up to that. Now, the demand of the fight, I feel, is potentially the best fight in boxing. Being on the pulse of this, like you and I, like us fans of the sport, because at the end of the day, like I'm a fan of the sport too, outside of what I do here.
Whoa.
I feel like we wanted that fight, but it's a weird time right now too to get pay-per-view, to put a product on pay-per-view. It has to be a stellar product in order for someone to want to shell out the $75, $69 that they're charging for these pay-per-view events. Outside of other economic factors happening right now in the United States, man.
I think that's about enough, but very, very interesting terminology, verbiage, very, very interesting takes. Great minds think alike, and some people do arrive at the same conclusions, and that's just a snippet that I wanted to get out of the way so that we can eliminate anybody that want to bicker back and forth about how Vergil and all them was ducking. We already know that. Like y'all spent we didn't argue. I didn't argue with a single soul about this topic. I'm proud of myself. Why? Because we knew going in that the leverage wasn't there. Like, we're going to get into it, but I wanted to get this out of the way for anybody that's here that's going to want to even have the impulse to try to argue and debate about why the fight didn't happen. We're moving on from that. That's not what we're here for today. That's not what we're saying. We just gave everybody why. Not from us, but we reiterated something that we said using another source to stamp it, right? So we're past the whole Vergil and Boots them moved on. But with about that clip or anything he said there before I get into the whole rest of it, like AC, what you got anything on that?
Yeah, basically, it's crazy because we were spot on when we were breaking down how this dude was trying to move, and then we were spot on when we were breaking down where the problem is with the fight, because it's just not enough money in it. And the only way the fight works is if Turkey's involved. You feel what I'm saying? Now, there is an avenue, but the zone is not willing to take that avenue because the zone doesn't have the numbers of a Netflix. They don't have the numbers of Amazon Prime. You feel what I'm saying? In the fact that with Netflix, it's not a pay-per-view. It's you're saying, all right, you bring me this amount of views with this amount of new subscriptions if the fight is big enough. Because we already have a barometer that if the fight is big enough, this is what can possibly happen. That might be a one-off, but if we run the numbers, then it should be a percentage, a solid percentage of that number that was the one-off. And that just tells you how the math people in there are looking at it when they talk to the team and everybody's sitting at the round table and they say, okay, what does the numbers look like? And that's all these smart college graduates that went to MIT and have degrees in mathematics and shit like that. They're going to start to tell you, all right, sir, based on this and viewership of this, and this is why I used to make the argument to dudes like, yo, bro, where y'all keep talking about this dude is throwing, everything's going to work out great, you know, because he's got all of this money. I'm like, look, the numbers are going to say something different. And even though you're doing this, the numbers are not matching what Jake Paul just did when he put together the fight between him and Mike Tyson and that card. That could be a one-off. That's real throwback numbers. So if what you're doing, you have to be on that level or give a certain percentage. So when it comes down to people talking about Tank and Tank having his Amazon Prime deal, that tells you something, that what Tank has on a consistent basis, his numbers and views, and if they put on fights with him, they still have the ability to make it a pay-per-view. Because he transcends the fact that says, hey, listen, if we make a Tank fight for free, oh my God, what are our numbers going to look like? If he's got the right opponent. So that's the business model of streaming. And if people can understand that part of it, then you kind of understand where certain things are happening and why certain things go the way they're going when it comes down to the zone. Is the zone a streaming platform or a pay-per-view platform? The question to that is they're a bit of both. They're 50-50 split. At times run 60-40 depending on the level of the fight. So they want to dip and dab in both models, which may be successful, but then again, we have to see the long-term goals of how streaming works out and how these guys are looking at stuff. So for me, to bring it all home, the proof was in the pudding that we know. And this is why I chose to listen to both Eddie and Oscar and say, you're leaving money on the table if you try to make this fight now. You had an opportunity, both sides said no, so the Turk is no longer interested. That's the baddest chick on the block. She's got 50 dudes talking to her. You meet her at the corner store with rollers and fluffy bunny slippers and shit like that, and you coerce her to getting her math, and you talking to her, and you like, yeah, I'm I'd love to take you out and all of that, and then the day that the day you supposed to take her out, 2 hours or 3 hours before that, you like, I don't know if I could take you out. I cut my toenail a little bit too short. Right now, if I put on my sneakers and socks, it's just a bitch. And I ain't got Jordan money to cut a hole in the shoe so my big toe can breathe. So can we do it like next week? He like, no. I got, other dudes just trying to talk to me that got bigger pieces of meat and more money. Like, bro, you had a chance. You had your opportunity. You blew it. So, you got to live with that. And that's where I'll leave it, man. Sometimes you just got to strike while the iron is hot. And you can't tell a gift horse, well, I'll accept the gift if you do X, Y, and Z for me. The gift horse gonna look at you and be like, oh, this is a stupid motherfucker right here. Let's get the fuck up out of here. So that's kind of what happens. So these are the repercussions. There's nothing else. There's nothing else that can be done. It's relegated now to the promotional companies, and the promotional companies are just telling you straight up and down, I can't pay you guys what you asking because the fight is not big enough.
The only other way I would have said it would have been marketable was we said, everybody said if Turkey was involved because he was the X factor. We thought that, okay, when it came down to big fights, if money was the issue, then Turkey was coming in like Jay-Z and Jermaine Dupri, like money ain't a thing. But we saw that even when he had money and he was putting out turkey bags, there were big fights that he either got in the way of, held up. I mean, we got the Benavidez and Bivol. It's a lot of fights that he got in front of and got in the way of or stopped. Hey, Bivol, don't bite the hand that feed you.
Yeah.
So when it come down to that was one way, Turkey being involved. The other way was if both of them had a belt. And we knew that not to be the case. And they told us, going back to listening to what they be saying and then watching how they be moving. And the only other thing before I get into this next part, the other thing I want to say is it is so ironic how a couple years ago, Floyd Mayweather got roasted. Like, people was on there for weeks on end when he came out and said, yeah, man, we got all these fights and we're going to do it basically under the TMT roof. We're going to do it in-house. People were like, oh my gosh, and this. And I'm like, but at the same time, Bob Arum was saying it. It was only a few fights that if it made sense, he would do pay-per-view. But for the most part, they were saying, basically, when it came down to Shakur, he was basically saying that he was looking for those guys to mix it up with each other. And there's empirical data showing that all them guys was mixing it up. Loma Tio, you had Loma and Jermaine Ortiz, T.O. Jermaine Ortiz. Like, I got all those little triangles, but like, y'all know what I'm saying when it comes down to that. There were always those times to where they were doing it in-house, but they scoffed at what Floyd was saying for the in-house. Eddie was, to a certain extent, they was kind of, Golden Boy, he definitely was doing it. So we kept saying, hey man, when you gonna make these guys get off the pot? I.e. Jaime Munguia, i.e. Zerto, i.e. Vergil. I can go on and on, Rocher. Like, I can go on and on. Had people like Conwell and Speedy Rashidi and Blair the Flair, and they was on the back burner. Ultimately, look at Floyd and how he was trying to talk Floyd not to going over there. That's why we just defaulted to the fact that, man, maybe somebody got tapped on the shoulder. It wasn't his time to go up against Shakur. Maybe the machine had a bigger plan. And Floyd upsetting the apple cart wasn't in the plans. If that were to happen, I don't know who would have won, but we were leaning towards Shakur. But y'all see what I'm saying. Everybody was doing that in-house thing. This is the crux of what I'm saying right here. It's so crazy that Eddie all this time has had the answers right there in front of him on the same label. Think about it. With the momentum that Boots had coming off the Stan Giannis, if he was going to go to 54, and the momentum that Conor Ben had coming off of the Freak Show circuses, why wouldn't that have been a good fight, a big fight? Mind you, we're hearing rumors that Shakur wants to go back down to 35 to fight who? Raymond Mortaya. Well, how did Raymond Mortaya get his time to shine? He just beat Andy Cruz. Guess where Andy Cruz was the whole time? Over there with Eddie and Shakur. But I'll be asking bad questions. I'm a hater. I go too much. I push too far. I demand. I'm too nosy. I'm blah. Even though I don't get messy, I just be looking at like obvious thing that's right in front of me. Like when you hungry and you gotta go grocery shopping, you gonna go look what's in the cabinet, what we got. You can start checking dates and seeing what's fresh and what's not, and you gonna do an inventory, and then you're gonna work with what you got. It's like now Eddie is almost forced to do that now. Why? Because everybody else have a dance partner. And we're forced to reset. But there were in-house fights when everybody scoffed at Floyd for making in-house fights, and you see what happened. Tanking Isaac Pitbull Cruz, tanking Rolly, tanking Barrios, tanking whoever else you want to decide. You could even throw in Hector Garcia. Like all those fights, all those in-houses that went on to be great fights. I mean, and PBC been doing that. The Tim Zoos versus the Fundor versus like everybody, Tony Harrison versus Jamel, like Castano, like they've been doing it. But Eddie never did it. He didn't do it at the opportune time. Ben go over there to Zuffa He signed a UFC fighter. They go in there like they in the mess hall with their chest out trying to force Vergil to do something. And I'm like, y'all didn't have that kind of leverage going in there. Especially since y'all turned down the fight. But Andy had the answers all along is what I'm getting at. He had the answers right there. Just like Shakur could have been for Cruz. If you would go back down now and fight Moritalia, why? Because he beat Andy Cruz. But your mans who had the beef with him in the Olympics since the amateurs matter so much, he didn't have to because Andy Cruz wasn't proven. But the fact that Moritalia, who you share the label of, who we've connected the dots to where one of them people in that 6-fight, $18 million deal, he would have been one of those names. You're going to go full circle to fight him. Why? Because now the time is right. Why? Because he beat Andy Cruz. Yeah, you and Andy Cruz was over there, and Conor Ben and Boots was over there. So before you get your blood pressure high and start running up, remember, fools jump up to get beat down. I might be aging myself, but that's what's going on. Let me go into this timeline. Eddie Hearn was working with Top Rank more than others. Yep. Let me go into this. Bodywork boxing investigation. Strategic missteps in the career management of Jaron Ennis. Now, we going back to 2023 because that's when I really started saying, I started really pushing. I started saying, man, we got to kind of get on. Like, I got to kind of see what's going on. So we're looking at it. This is not a knee-jerk reaction. This is like, for me doing the shows, me, you know what I'm saying? Because I'm not a bandwagon guy. I wasn't going to jump off the Spence just to go jump on the Boots bandwagon. I wasn't going to do it. Just like when Bud beat Spence, I didn't just jump off of that and just jump onto the Bud bandwagon. I still am an Earl Spence fan. I was looking at Boots like, yeah, I'm a fan of them too. It was almost just like when Tank and Shakur, I used to be a fan of them both. At some point in time, I was just like, I'm not a Shakur fan. That was here recently. But I've been kind of slowly but surely with these moves and all that, I got off. But I always looked at one point in time, I was a fan of Shakur, I was a fan of Tank. When it came down to them fighting, I got Tank. That's the only difference. Shakur fight anybody else, I would have Shakur. I don't feel like that anymore. But that's how it was. So that's how I was looking at Boots. It was like, man, I'm not going to pitch you. Because one time I was like, man, did he really want to smoke with Bud? And I thought he did. And then some things happened. And so I had to come out and apologize to Bud. And then I saw opportunity where Bud said this. And it was like, no, well, that's not all the way right and exact according to the timeline. But I've been looking at this guy since 2023, like up close with a microscope. And remember, I took my lady up there to Atlantic City to go to his fight. We witnessed the history. So would a fan go out of town and go up there and see a fight and buy tickets, hotel, food, take his lady to the fight? A fan, I'm thinking a fan would do something like that. So this is the place where I'm coming from. I'm saying missteps as far as everything that I've seen. There's empirical events and outcomes involved, not just opinions on this one. But January 7, 2023, that's the current fight. Ennis wins the UD, but goes the full 12 rounds. Now, CompuBox edge, but difficulty finishing. This is when we saw that he had an issue with, he might have had an issue with the mover style opponent. So it kind of raised eyebrows because it was on the Tank undercard, and we thought that he was going to just obliterate Karen. Karen got in there and got the using his feet, got the dancing out there. He had on his dancing shoes a little bit, and he was sticking. And, Boots was getting touched a little bit. Boots was whiffing. But it was an early indicator of stylistic challenges, right? It demonstrated that highly mobile opponents could extend Ennis the full distance. While Ennis dominated the scorecards, it revealed potential stylistic complications. July 8th, 2023, Romain Villa. 10th round KO, restored his momentum. Remember, him and Rashidi was going at it, but Romain Villa almost wound up stopping Speedy. He dropped him. Even though I had him getting outboxed, I can't argue with the decision because he had a lot of drops at the end of that fight. You know, I couldn't kick and scream about that. Fight position Ennis for major welterweight matchup. So that right there, when they like, oh, he did that to Romain Villa, because Romain Villa, he was calling himself what, Pretty Flacco. You know what I'm saying? Only other person aside from ASAP Rocky that was calling him, Romain, he was pretty Flacco or whatever you call him or whatever. Boots, I think Boots kind of messed that man up, man. He ain't been right. I seen him fight after that, man. His punch resistance, man. Boots did something to him, man. Momentum window open. So Romain Villa, the knockout of Villa, restored the knockout narrative around Ennis and generated excitement about his trajectory towards major championship fights. November the 23rd, IBF champion elevation. The IBF elevates Ennis to full champion after Crawford was stripped. There was a lot of FA outrage out here, but you know what I'm saying? He was stripped nevertheless. Expectation, major fights versus elite welterweight. So we're looking at November 23rd. Back in November 23rd, that's when people first started having expectations of major fights and elite welterweights. What year are we in right now? That was November 2023. We in March 2026, y'all. Let that sink in. IBF champion when Ennis became full IBF champion. The expectations was that the belt would lead to major fights against the top names in the division. The belt would lead. The belt would lead, y'all. The belt would lead. April 2024, Matchroom signing. Promotional deal creates expectation of major fights. Market positioning shifts towards global promotion. That's when they were starting to say, oh man, we taking them global and all this and all that. Matchroom deal, the signing with Matchroom was marketed as a major promotional shift designed to increase Ennis's global exposure and secure higher profile bites. That's what we all thought. Bouts. That's what we all thought. July 2024, Philadelphia event. Ennis versus Avanesian draws major Philly attendance. Proof of market draw and hometown support. Proof of concept was addressed and proven. So not only was the expectations there, but you actually had a major market. You did it at home, which is good if you can sell out your backyard. Philadelphia event. The Avanesian fight demonstrated that Ennis could draw a strong crowd in Philadelphia, strengthening the argument that he had commercial leverage. So now we cooking with gas. You got a belt. You show that you can put numbers out. Now you got commercial leverage. That was July 2024. Where we at? March 2026 now, right? So y'all understand as we go along my frustration, if y'all are paying attention. August through September 2024 mandatory rematch. Negotiations led to Chukazian rematch. Risk. Low fan interest. Opponent returns. Now, I always say that, listen, I be looking at Eddie. I be judging him the same way people was judging Floyd and judging Ellerby and judging all, like the people they don't like, it's everybody's fault. Whoever's in management, when they like the guy, oh, it ain't their fault. It's never their fault. I always look at it because I say Eddie is a master at allowing people to miss their momentum. What fight did Conor Ben have coming right off that freak show? What fight did he have? What fight did Boots have coming off of unifying with Stan Giannis? Which fight did he have? Did they capitalize on the momentum? The mandatory rematch, instead of building on momentum, negotiations produced a rematch with Chukajan. From a promotional standpoint, rematches against low-demand opponents often carry risk. So it was a risk. Like, people start saying, oh, man, well, yeah, no, he ain't get him up out of there, but he won handily damn near every round and all this and all that. They go to the hyperbole, but it's like, no, let's not move the goalposts. You know what I'm saying? Same way Devin went 24 rounds with Kambosos, he went 24 rounds with Karen. Now, instead, they give Karen and say that, oh, man, a lot of people can get with Karen. Karen to get with, now he done showed that. Yeah, he done showed that He survived Boots for 24 rounds. How many boxers can say that? How many boxers can say that? I think Karan is like the only one, unless you're talking about some sparring that we don't know about. 24 rounds. Stick with me. November 9th, 2024. Rematch statistically closer. Opponent lands career high punches versus Ennis. That's what people don't really realize. He landed career high against Ennis. And people be getting perturbed about saying he don't get hit. We judge him all. People be saying Tank get hit too much. I was saying Sabril got hit too much. At one point in time, Mr. Gary Russell was saying that his brother Gary Antoine was getting hit too much. It's an assessment when you're analyzing these fights. A legitimate one. Rematch statistics, punch statistics, and media commentary suggest that the rematch performance appeared less dominant than the first meeting. That's why, hence, on the last one, they said risk, low fan interest, opponent returns, and when you don't get up for the fight, boom. D Calico, salute. Market impact. Let me see. Attendance and fan momentum decreased after rematch. Narrative shift in boxing media discussion. So it kind of shifted the narrative a little bit. That's why I talk about the momentum. Market impact, a drop in attendance, and reduced fan enthusiasm suggested that the rematch weakened the momentum. That's what people were saying, that they were following the bouncing ball all along. I hope y'all getting something from this. It's not, this part is not that long right here. Let's look at this. Ortiz negotiations timeline. Talks between teams stretch across 2025 into 2026. Fight expected to define the division. Now, I don't know if it expected so much, but according to the power that be, just like Mr. Marcos Villegas, he basically saying that's the biggest fight. I don't subscribe to that necessarily, but it's a good scrap. It's a good scrap with two fan bases. But just like me myself, I be having to try to explain to people that people have a fan base. Vergil has a fan base, and his fan base is saying that's a big fight. I'm not gonna argue with him. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not at that point. I'm just saying, like, the way people say, oh, that's the absolute biggest. Some of us, like, I don't know. Because if I said, would it interest you to see Devin and Boots? I think people would go get in that line to see Devin and Boots. I think they would. Because, I don't know if it was, you go to the left and you get to see Boots and Vergil. You go to the right, you get to see Devin and Boots. Which line you standing in? Raise your hand if you standing in the Boots and Devin line. I think I'm gonna be in that line. Why? Because we seen Boots, me, myself, I've seen Boots fight that kind of style. He's tailor-made. That's my argument. For years they would say, oh man, Tank, all he do is flat forward, come forward. But it wasn't true, but that was the narrative around Tank and his opponent. Well, we know that Boots, Keyshawn, like them guys, Shakur, them flat-footed, come forward fighter, this right up their alley. Like, everybody knows how to beat one of them guys. Why? Because it's skill to be able to use your feet and be mobile and agile and be able to stick and move and not get hit but still be effective. It's tailor-made when they're coming straight to you. Ortiz negotiations. Negotiations for fight with Vergil Ortiz were widely discussed as potentially defining matchups in the division. Collapse, legal promotion, and complications prevented the fight from being finalized, ending major opportunity for both fighters. It's kind of like where we went. That's kind of like where we went to. Fight never materialized. Evidence-based conclusions. Sequence of strategic decisions reduced momentum. Major fights delayed or lost. Public perception affected. And I think that's where we at right now, where the public perception is like, we believe, he's a Ferrari. You know what I'm saying? We'll put him up, like the things that he can do in there, that video style game when he's doing the Matrix and moving in slow motion and winding up and hitting people with, an uppercut from like 2.5, 3 feet out. We want to see that. But the perception is like, man, we haven't seen it against anybody, and the only thing that we really have going by is like the word of mouth. I just went over a timeline from 2023 to 2026, and you ask yourself, well, who did he fight? And I hear a lot of people get they draws in their butt when somebody say he didn't fight a big name. Now, some people who they either pro buzz, so they want to take up on boots, they'll say something like that. But then like you'll have real pundits saying, well, basically saying that the resume leaves a lot to be desired, even though he has some accolades solid, if that makes sense. So conclusion taken together, the sequence of decisions suggests that career momentum may have been impacted by matchmaking and negotiation outcomes. That's where we've landed. You know what I'm saying? That's where we've landed with the whole situation. And that's a brief timeline, but we went back 3 years. This is going to be like in 2026, technically, this would be going into the 4th year of this. And it's probably going to be the 2 tune-ups. I know I went over that timeline, AC, man. What you got, homie?
I want to speak to the timeline first. And in that, it's when we talk to someone and someone is affirmatively locked in a specific point in a timeline, and we're trying to go through the timeline with that person so they can understand how they got there, and the fact that we understand how you got there. So let us bring it up to that timeline so we're both in agreement, and then this is where we'll start to show you within the timeline where you and I started to disagree. When we do stuff like that, you get people who are ready to react, and that reaction will not allow them to be quiet and reply to the timeline. Because if there's something wrong within it, you want to react and then debate that point right there. And then that then turns into something else. You know what I'm saying? So sometimes you have to ask yourself, is it a obfuscation attempt, or are you just trying to distract? Because the timeline itself, when you start to break it down, it completely dismantles your argument. Where we can see where you are, and we can see because we're following the timeline and the same sequences that you saw, but you will ignore that because you're stuck in that moment. Well, it was said right here, then they put the offer out right there, and that was 7 times more than Brian Norman. Yeah, but understand that that's one point in the timeline. What about all of these events that happened prior to that? It don't matter. And that's where you get that type of stuff from. So when we're trying to bring people full circle, you'll start to see. And this is where, within the last guy who came up, where the frustration was in Bodywork, because it's like, look, we're trying to go through the timeline, but you won't even let people get through the timeline. You keep wanting to interrupt and go to the point that we already know, but it's either something that led up to that point or something that happened after that point that just made you forget about everything that happened before then and before then and after that. So we're trying to understand you so we can all have a conversation, whether you disagree or agree, whether your standpoints is still going to be, well, I come from the camp of Tom Brown that it's not us, it's always the fighter. Okay, if you want to take the Tom Brown stance and we'll label it as the Tom Brown stance, then cool, bro. Cool, we'll have that argument, but we can't ignore the timeline. And that's the thing that's sometimes more important, that adds more clarity than you and I going back and forth. It's just both of us listening and both of us, you know, talking about the timeline and being non-biased about the timeline. That's the key. So if you're on a channel that'll say, well, we'll go through the timeline, but the timeline seems to leave out certain information and certain things that were said that are tangible to the full outcome, then it's like, all right, we're not expecting you to quote verbatim everything that was said second by second, minute to minute, but the biggest things, the things that are like, you know, when we talk about the Avengers and how the Hulk had to go back to talk to the Mystic and stuff like that, and she was just explaining how timelines work. There are certain events that just cannot be stopped. It's bound to happen because that's just the way time works. And we don't want to ignore those events because those events slowly changed or dramatically changed the outcome. And when you look at the timeline of how Boots was moving, how Eddie decided to move Boots and stuff like that, there's an argument that says, okay, Boots, you said X, Y, and Z. We gave you that you were going to be in charge and you were going to do this, and that, yada, 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 be more in charge. Okay, cool. But then here's the thing. When Eddie told you he was not going to let you fight Conor Benn or put Conor Benn in there, that was your moment. Even though it was in public, that was your moment to be like, whoa, if I want to fight Conor Benn, I get the Conor Benn fight. But you sat there and kept quiet, and your dad sat there and kept quiet, which then let everybody know you're not the boss. You made a statement back in the day that you still can't be, because Eddie just told you who I'm going to allow you to fight and who I'm not going to allow you to fight. So after that, where's the argument? Who's saying who's ducking who? You feel what I'm saying? Where's the argument and the tangible argument that you guys can make to me to say Vergil is ducking Boots when Eddie won't even put Boots in the ring with the Conor fucking Benn? So that's the way I look at all of that. And that's why at times timelines are extremely important, because it'll give you more information than what you thought you were originally looking for when you went through the timeline. It reveals so much other things, and then it'll give you a whole list and litany of questions that if you're a real fan of this person, you'd have to ask yourself, yo, Boots, what's really good, man? Why didn't you stand up to Eddie when he told you he wasn't going to put Conor Benn in there? That's the reason why we all thought you signed to him, is to go over to UK, get that bag, and bust Conor Benn's ass. But nah, what happened? What happened? Eddie sold you Rolex diamonds that ain't, bruh. Like, yo, I don't know what to tell you, homie. So that's where I'm coming from when I try to break down the timeline, because you can talk about all the other stuff. You can try to tell me X, Y, and Z, but the most revealing thing in it, that entire timeline, is Eddie telling this man, I'm not gonna make that fight in public on camera. And nobody was outraged about that. I was like, wow. We cooked on it over here. And we were like, yeah, like, how the fuck does that pass everybody? But it's the type of thing that people just said, yeah, well, that's Eddie. You know, promoters know what they're doing, and why would he fight Conor Benn? Because that had legs on it already. If Boots wanted to stay busy, Conor Benn been running around saying, I don't know, hey, listen, I'll fight any of the Yanks. or for any of the Yanks. But what the fuck's going on? So at the end of the day, bro, like y'all gotta explain that one to me. And that's just me sipping on my iced coffee late at night on that one.
Well, I'll summarize it. The bottom line: Team Ennis repeatedly made moves that were defensible in isolation, but damaging in sequence. Bars. One by one, the decision looked survivable. Together, they created a pattern. Big talent, weak opponent selection, wasted momentum, damaged public perception, and a missed super fight with Vergil Ortiz. So that's like all I'm gonna say, man, about it. I'm gonna say, listen, man, we've been watching it. It's not, this is aside from emotional input and all that, because my ties aren't like that. Like, it's just, I like the fighting style. I think that he's definitely a talent. He keeps his, his nose clean. He's never had any outside of the ring issues. So it's nothing to not really like about Boots, except for maybe some of the decision making. I don't even criticize him for not being like all that in the interviews and all that. I don't care. Like, I think as he get more comfortable and, he forgets that the cameras are there and that he's the star and he don't care about none of that, in time, just like them all, just like Tank opened up a little bit more and got more better. Like when he was comfortable, you got to see more of his personality. I think Boots is there too. He's just behind Tank in that development, and by having the big fights, by being up there with Rolly, by being up there with Ryan, by being up there with these guys that like Lamont talking and all that, like it was those times that developed it. Just like Jermell and Tony Harrison, that development, like the big bright lights and get used to it. Brian Norman just had a sample size of it when it came down to Devin in the media and how they was coming at him and all that. So, in my opinion, I don't even judge him on the personality. I look at it more like just like how I just stated. You can defend any fighter's moves in isolation, but when you group them together and you put them, like you say, okay, I'm not going to be a knee-jerk reactionist, and okay, out of a dozen, saying 1 or 2 eggs didn't make it or something was wrong. Okay, that's just the odds. One of them didn't make it. You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, so what? You have a bad night at the office, you have a bad opponent, or if you go against a guy that was designed to actually make it look rough and tough. We talked about Sean Porter the other day and the kind of fighter he is. We talk about them out here, Albrights, the Lamont Roaches, them guys to where if you're not the favorite and you go in there with them, you probably ain't gonna look your best, but you might not win. You have those kind of nights. So I don't look at that. I try not to look at anything in isolation. I'm like, okay, well, all right. Just like I had this new rule where after fighters win a belt, whether they move up, whatever, as soon as they win a belt, I have released myself from having any kind of high expectations for that next fight. Now, there are a couple guys that will do that, but I released myself. Why? Because they get to go have a circus or parade that belt, or I made it, so let me defend it, or whatever they want to do with it. So I'm not going to be putting that much pressure. But that next one, I'm looking at it like, And still, I'm not going to get my blood pressure high. I'm just going to come on here and put a stake in the ground and say, hey, listen, this guy is ducking, or this guy's moving funny, or this guy, he made a bad move, missed me with all that other stuff. That's all I'm really doing with Boots. And we went over the timeline, but we looked back, we went all the way back to 2023 with this. The answer now is, what do they do moving forward? That's the question. And some people are saying, oh man, Josh Kelly, he has to do this, he has to do that. And I'm gonna address this one thing, because I keep hearing it, and it's like one of the most asinine, if I'm going to police up my language, it was one of the most asinine things I've heard, in that people are still turning down fights because they want too much bread. It's like, okay, Marco Villegas just told y'all. He just reiterated the same thing that me and AC, we've said it so many different times. Even other people that got up here and said it. Between AJ and D. Caligo and Dev Wall, like whoever was up here, all have pretty much addressed the fact that Turkey and them inflated the market. Now that variable is missing, right? We're now starting to see the after effects of that, which we forecasted in real time, saying, oh man, okay, well, we can't tell you your value because you did get a contract and you got paid that amount, if we're going to assume, because we really don't know what hit their accounts, if we're going to be honest. We just know it's reported, and we don't really pocket watch. Just for the sake of conversation to be on board, we kind of keep track of those things. But there's still this notion of where people are still ducking, saying that they want more money. And I challenge that. Why? Because is there a history of Eddie sending low ball offers? Let's remove Boots. Let's add Devin in some of the negotiations. And when I was following that bouncing ball all along, absolutely. Let's remove Devin. Let's talk about Wilder and Anthony Joshua. It's like this don't apply to just one scenario or one fighter. We try to be subjective and keep our eye on the prize when it comes to whoever we're talking about that night. This conversation right here happens to be around Boots. We can no longer have these conversations, and I've been saying this for probably at least a year now or more. We got to stop saying that people want too much money to fight Boots. I just told y'all how Romain Vida, he's not the same fighter. His punch resistance is gone. He's not the same guy as before he fought Boots. And he done got hit plenty of time before that because he's a step above a rock'em sock'em, but he just nice with it. He can really put you out if you let him get lathered up and get in his moving and grooving. He's going to stop you. Boots permanently damaged that man. So is it unreasonable for them to ask for whatever they're asking based on the pot, minus this turkey inflated stuff, but just sending out an offer just to be able to come back online and say, oh, we sent them an offer knowing that there's rules, there's fine print, there's things that you're playing games with the fans, knowing that there's all these other things. I don't think it's acceptable. Why? Because you signed over there. You signed over there, so he owes you a responsibility to be able to get you what we thought you was going to be getting. And with you and your team not checking it, with you and your team going along with the plan, saying that, oh no, don't mix us up with Conor Ben, don't do that, because we always go back to this one point. When it was rumored that he was first going over there, we said, oh, okay, it was almost like baked in the pie that we were going to get Boots and Conor. That didn't happen. But Conor looked like whatever he wanted with concessions. Why wouldn't Boots get a Eubanks fight with all that rehydration or having to move up and all that? Think about what that would have did for Boots if he was able to do that. But Eddie made concessions for who? Conor Ben. Just like with the Liam Paro thing, just like with the Richardson Hitchens thing, just like with the Sabril Matias thing. Like, Boo Boo is not the only example. It's the example that everybody loves. And then this other thing, this lie, Eddie was the one that paraded Devin around. He did it with the former faded champions. And in his case, he at least got the former faded champions and built a hallmark of actually getting those cougars with Eddie. Eddie did that. That's why he feels so. Eddie did a lot for Devin. Devin was the one that on Eddie when it came down, and that's why they probably go back and forth now, where they have like one day they love each other, one day they hate each other. But I don't think Devin is a priority for Eddie because he's got Crocker. He's going into some other endeavors. He made Ben Whitaker, made him show him the money. That's what I'm saying. There's money. It's just if it was money for Ben Whitaker, it was money for El Nerd Turhan, the white chick that was knocking everybody out. Why wouldn't it be no money for anybody opposite of Boots? Going into it like, man, y'all can't be asked for all that money. You're not going to get it. Somebody come out and say a number. They say, hey, let's negotiate. Hell, Jamel Charlo, who everybody trying to label as one of these famous former glory champions. And now people just now, because they knew that the option ran out and they got tired of making content about how Vergil ducked and started being a little bit solution-oriented, they're just now coming around to say that Jamel Charlo would be an excellent fight. And he's actually two-time lineal, and he was undisputed. And although he went up to 68 and lost, he still was the man at 154 because he cleared out the division and picked up all the belts one by one. They just now coming around. He's saying, call me. Don't assume when I want, call me. Talk to me. Let me know a number. Let's negotiate. Let's see what's going on. So this whole, we got to stop it, and until more people get out here and start saying it, and we start developing this culture, and we start being more solution. Because if you're on the side of telling whoever, oh man, you can't be asking for all that, man, you need to just go ahead and fight Boots, you're not going to get as close to the fight. If you start saying, hey Eddie, man, we done looked at this thing for like the past 3 years. You done got a rematch. You done lost purse bids. You done won purse bids and had a contract with the winner on it. We didn't get that fight next. Now you're running around getting ready to try to negotiate with a whole nother side of the street once again. You got answers, bro, but you're going to have to come up off that purse, that bag, and put this man in a good fight. Because it's been 3 years that we just started counting. Since the first Quran, I went back to the first Quran fight. I think he like 35-0. You made this man make moves, drop his strap when he could have fought Brian Norman, because we seen what Devin did. That could have been him. We didn't get that. He would have been 3 belts in the 4-belt era, getting ready to fight probably Barrios and Ryan or the winner. So we might be able to assume that it might have been Boots with 3 straps if he would have get past Brian Norman, just assuming. I'm not saying he would. I'm just saying, just assuming, hypothetically, if he were to get Brian Norman and got that WBO strap instead of Devin, and then we would have been looking at Ryan and Boots with 3 straps and the ring. Or a big super fight. You think since you a gym rat and you stay in shape, you think you might would have wanted to wait 2 more times to get that popping? Going over the timeline, I think you might have would have, because you did it. You went up to 54 for Lima. That around that time frame, we can assume that would have been you and Brian Norman, maybe. And then we just seen with Ryan doing whatever Barrios. We would have been looking at summertime, like July. Ryan Garcia versus Boots, with Boots being in Earl Spence position with 3 straps, and Ryan having the WBC, and Boots coming to the table with the ring. Humongous fight, but you didn't do that. Didn't use your leverage to corner Bakram. Didn't use your leverage to do nothing with the WBA. Said, no, I don't want no tune-ups, and then go fight Uisma Lima, mate. That's what we at. You know what I'm saying? So we not flying by night. We're not just, shooting from the hip. We're not even disrespecting Boots and them. We're asking what's next, y'all. Let's do something. Let's be positive, and let's cancel the narrative about how people want too much money to fight Boots. If they do, oh well, that's Eddie and them problem, man. Or that will be acceptable for your man to still sit by the dock of the bay wasting time for another 3 months? Or are we going to get a Madrimov? Are we going to get a Madrimov? I don't know. What you think's next, AC?
Me, honestly, there's the strongest possibility tells me Madrimov. The least likely outcome tells me he'll do Madrimov and then Mel. If Mel chooses not to do any tune-ups or whatever, just says, you know what, I'm just coming back and I'm coming straight home and I'm hitting that shit raw. So with that being said, the smartest fight as far as the business part of it, I don't know. I don't think it would be somebody coming off a loss. So the person that fits the category, the name and everything else is it's really looking like Israel Madrimov. Will the fans accept it? Yeah. Will Boots fans accept it? Yeah. Will they be happy about it? Yeah. Because it's a common opponent between 3 people. The perception, well, it's a common opponent between 2 other people, and the perception is that Boots was chasing these 2 people. And that's Bud fought Madrimov and Vergil fought Madrimov. That's just the way I see it, because it's just smart for him, because then it'll put his name not between the fans who's been watching all of this and for the same criticism that fans will give Hitchens down in 140 if he takes his mandatory. It's kind of like the same situation Boots is in if he chooses to fight Majimov with those of us fans who are like diehard fans. But for the casuals, they're gonna just tell us, "Oh, why y'all hating?" And then we can go through the timeline and talk about all the hardware, 47, and the Vergil fight being on the table, and him saying, "No, I want 2 tune-ups," and they're gonna say, "Yeah, but none of that matters. He's coming up in weight." And then you'll bring other examples of fighters that didn't do it, but then they'll make some other excuse. So when it comes down to it, for me, it's ugly for me to say this. It's kind of cringy for me to say this, but right now the smartest move to satisfy the casuals and the market is to fight Majimov or someone within that Majimov frame. So that's what I think he's gonna do, and it's one of those things that I chalk up as an ugly truth.
Yeah, I mean, he can go in there and he can obliterate him. If he go in there and like totally obliterate him, stop him, knock him out in devastating fashion, yeah, he can pick that same momentum like Romain V. Because at the end of the day, here's what I'll be trying to tell people about tanking at 93.33%. At the end of the day, that's really what it was. When he got in there with him, he was just getting to these guys first, but it's something about him and he's figuring out how to do it. If Boots, whoever they put in front of him, he just obliterated, whether they got foot movement, whether they running, whether it's European style. If he just started obliterating, smoking everything the way he did Lima, like everybody, no matter what, and he stay active, he's going to get there. People going to be like, I don't care who on the other side. He's not there yet. And they're trying to, it looks like to me that they're leading him down a path of like, because I heard somebody say it. So Bud was what, 38 when he blah blah blah. Like you want to wait till the Boots turn 37, 38 before he try to pull off what Bud. That's what Bud did is an anomaly, y'all.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like it's like some people have usurped all of that prestige or whatever that Bud had built and they transferred it over to them because they're active fighters. It really didn't shift because what Bud did was an anomaly and they're not moving like him. Bud moved up to 147 and got Horn, albeit whether you thought that was the best champion, either way, he moved up and got a champion off the rip. When he went up to 54, he moved up and we didn't like it or whatever, but by definition, Majimov was the champ. Then he jumps up to 68 and fights Canelo, who was the undisputed. Like, who else is doing those type of things, regardless of the style, the matchup, and all that? That's the facts. So to try to say you're spelling this guy, you're the second coming to this guy, or now that he's gone, this is you, you're not moving like it. And we shouldn't have to say it all nice and dress it up with a bow and put a cherry on top and all. We should just be able to talk boxing. And the same way y'all talk about all these other fans, the same way y'all put all these other other boxers, same way y'all talk about other boxers, same way y'all put them all on the scale. Like put them, like let's judge them all and let's say, hey, listen, man, this was your guy because we've proven it. If this was another guy, he would be getting roasted. And he fought Avanesian off of a knockout loss. So we can't even rule knockout loss or whatever because they were trying to get Bodywork. I'm thinking of Brandon Adams or Conwell. Conwell didn't get knocked out. I would love to see it. But the trend is it's probably going to be European. It's looking like Majimov was groomed for, the spot. It might be rumors of somebody else, but we want to know what's next moving forward. I ain't going to beat a dead horse. The other ones basically up here was like the whole Claressa. The fact that whole ordeal with her and the dude, even though that's messy and all that, like in hindsight, even with her in the Rolly situation, in hindsight now, y'all can agree that instead of going around picking and chumping out all of the females in and around her weight class, she's still tongue wrestling and putting out information. And think about this, in 2026, Rolly Romero is the voice of reason. Like he said, no, I'm not going to, she'll knock me out. If she believes that, and he took the high road. Why? Because the same reason why I was getting a little bit perturbed when she was doing this to Keith Thurman. I'm like, first of all, both of these guys are dare I say it, PBC fighters. I told you this attack is comprehensive. It is a reason why. Especially with him getting ready to rival Devin or whatever's going on and how they've been trolling and how we don't know whether that's going on and whether Ryan, it's going to be Ryan in September. I mean, first Rolly and then Ryan. They're waiting a mighty long time, but she gets to go by. We're going to take out all the speculation of the indiscretions. We ain't going to go there. We're going to go by this media tour where she's actively calling out saying she would knock out Rolly and all this. And in hindsight, people just now coming around and say, oh, she got to stop doing this. Like, she's been out of control. She's been out of control. I'm not going to talk too much about that. And we did talk about the Tank thing where, in hindsight, man, it's looking like a lot of people going to have to eat crow in this situation, man, and have to, you know, and we're also seeing the contradiction. I put out an incredible short because I'm seeing that this is a very popular opinion. We just happened to do it the other day, and it was on wax, so I thought, hey, that's sure to be lovely because it's going to age so well. But the fact that Shakur Stevenson was actively pursuing people when before the fight, why would he fight people? And this was his fan. Why would he fight his OnlyFans? The core.
Your volume went out, Body. Body, your mic went out. If y'all could hear me, just somebody put AC in the comment. So I know it's me and not Bodywork. Body, you there? Well, I hope y'all can hear me out there, and I'm just gonna keep cooking while Body gets it together, and hopefully it'll all come. Just got a feedback, but basically this is where we are. This is All right. Everything good now, Body? Because I still can't hear anything. Because when I tried to go back in on the link you sent me, it said the show had ended. And then I went here to straight to the show itself, and the link worked. Well, basically, I guess we're having some really tough technical difficulties. I guess we was just cooking too hard for YouTube and stuff. So, with that being said, it was a great show. Tune in for tomorrow's show. Hopefully, everything will work out a little bit better. I got a whole bunch of background craziness that's going on outside my window in my neighborhood, so it's not going to lend well for the audio of the show. And with that being said, on to the next one. And it was, for what we got in, it was a great cook.
He didn't want to box. He wanted to actually prove that he could punch with you. He was like, what the fuck is this nigga, right? Oh, okay, you want to go to sleep. You tired.
Welcome to Bodywork.